I hope I did that on the last one. Okay, let's see where we at. What time is it?
Okay. All right. We will start the next one on media coverage and athletic performance. Does the clicker work for this one?
Because it didn't work for the PDF. Let's see. You just have to do the clicker right there.
Okay. Okay. Welcome, everyone. I'm Katherine Fernandez,
I'm Michael Porcelli. Brian Olson.
and we're presenting the economics of media coverage and athletic performance.
So what's defined as media? Media is defined as the main means of mass communication of our country. Most common media inputs are radio, internet, newspaper, magazine, and most importantly, it's presentation, social media. So the role of media athletics starts with visual activity, which is not only in athletic class, but also everywhere else. Everyone can read the newspaper every morning, and people also, as soon as they wake up, check their social media. So it's just become part of everyday life. There's some professional and student athletes in media is that student athletes mainly promote themselves, while professional athletes mainly have obligations. The example of student athletes promoting themselves would be football players in high school using puddles, which they record themselves and they can put out to other universities to try and get recruited. And as recently as last year, student athletes were able to profit off of their likeness through NIL and mainly seen in Division 1. But as it ages, we can most likely see the funnel of Division 2, Division 3. And media also can have a negative impact on athletes' lives where it's constantly reporting on their performance, which can drain mental health.
So before we can get to the role of media coverage, we have to first establish that mental health plays a role in how you perform on the field. So athletes face distraction on a daily basis, like if there's a loved one, like your family, your friends are out there watching you play, or if you're having problems off the field, or you have to deal with your teammates and your coaches, or if there's a bad call, you make a mistake, or anything like that, and then you get to add on potential to get media coverage. So with all those distractions, there's a clear consensus on countless studies that your mental state impacts your athletic performance. With this quote from one of the studies that we looked at, athletic performance efficiency is reduced by distraction. And there are the 4 C's or components of athletic performance, like your mental state while you're performing, which are concentration, which is your ability to focus on the task at hand, and things like spectators and off-field issues can impede that ability. Confidence, your self-esteem, so if you make a mistake, you're probably not going to be confident in yourself. And control, emotional control, so when you make a bad call or you make a mistake, you have to try to control your emotions and not let that get to you. And then commitment is just your drive to succeed. So media coverage presents immense pressure on athletes because there's constant and intrusive coverage in their daily lives. This is more so on the professional level, but there's still a significant amount of coverage on the collegiate level. And the Olympians for the Atlanta and Medallo Olympic Games specifically stated that media coverage was a negative factor due to the performance in the games. The media glorifies good performance and sets high expectations and makes you overconfident. And media will criticize bad performance and cause stress and anxiety and interfere with your mental state. There's not a whole lot of empirical research-driven studies that were conducted on this issue. But one study that we found looked at whether media hype creates overconfidence, whether criticism causes stress and anxiety, or whether criticism is motivation to improve. So among typical distractions, media coverage can be another factor that amplifies the negative effects of your mental state on athletic performance. The athletes affected by the media's coverage are more likely to see decreased performance on the field competition because, like I said before, good coverage makes them overconfident, and bad coverage either gets their head and just makes them perform perform worse or motivates them to perform better. And there's no concrete result on which one of those impacts bad coverage will have. It's mostly explained by sports psychology, like the reaction is going to differ from person to person based on their personality type. And then even the prospect of future media coverage can distract an athlete because they're worrying about the media flash that they're going to get after a performance instead of wanting to perform well just for their team. So they're worrying about the performance, but not because they want to win. They want that.
To dive deeper into that, when you have negative reporting or positive reporting, they have lasting impacts. So a negative reporting, you're thinking about that, and that could affect your performance on the court or on the field or something like that. And a positive performance can kind of set you as a role model, an example for kids, or it could kind of put you in a place where you have to uphold like unrealistic standards, and that can really put a lot of strain on you and cause unneeded stress and anxiety on top of the performance that you need to have on the court, on the field. An example of this is Simone Biles. She withdrew from the 2020 Olympics from the women's team finals, the all-around individual competition, and the event finals of vault, uneven bars, and floor. So this was a huge step addressing the balance between the mental and physical health through sports. And this was very controversial. Many people were mad or upset that she withdrew, while other people were kind of supporting her in taking this big step to do what she needed to do for herself.
So just like Simone Biles, some athletes who are affected by media, Kenny Rogers on the left here. So he was a pitcher with the Texas Rangers back in 2005. During this game with the Angels, he got into a fight before the game with a couple of Fox News cameramen. He told them to get the camera out of his face. Obviously they didn't, because they're there for a reason. And everything happened like that. And he didn't talk to the media at all after that. And he was having a career best pitching season. And he eventually started to lose 8 of their next 9 games in a row. Another example is Ricky Williams. He developed a social anxiety disorder due to the media pressure that was put onto him in the NFL. He was a Dolphins running back. He was leading the league in rushing yards, and eventually, a couple years after he developed this social anxiety disorder, he turned to drug use, which caused him to fail a couple of the NFL's drug tests, which gave him fines of about $650,000 and a 4-game suspension. So he ended up retiring because he could not deal with all the pressure of the media, of the fans, of even his own family members, because he just didn't want to talk to anyone. And that's what that social anxiety disorder does to someone like that. So media in athletes' lives, the immense pressure that these athletes have on them due to media contracts that their leagues and their teams have is just, a lot of us couldn't fathom how much pressure they have. And they really have to be upstanders in the community, as well as professionals to their teams and their leagues, and also play their sport at the same time. Most athletes believe that they should be paid based off their performance, not on their ability to speak to the media. And if they don't want to speak to the media, that should be their decision. But in the NFL, the Fox, Disney, ESPN, those kind of places have spent over $500 million on rights to some of their games. And obviously these teams need these players to speak to the media because it brings in their revenue. And it also, gives their fans something to watch. But yeah, a lot of these athletes don't want to speak, but they're forced to. A great quote from Marshawn Lynch is, "I'm just here so I don't get fined."
The economic impact of media. Athletes aren't just valued based on performance, they're also valued as an entertainer. For example, LeBron James is going to sell more tickets than Kawhi Leonard or Lou Williams. And sports teams and players promote games through social media. Like if the Atlanta Hawks are having a special event that night, they can post on Instagram and Twitter that they're having the event, and they can sell more tickets. And in various leagues, there are media obligations written in contracts, but NFL plans to restrict this. And media obligations in their contracts. For example, every player must be readily available after games in the regular season, but in the postseason, star players are not only have to be available, but required to do interviews and other special events. NFL.
Well, in conclusion, as student athletes ourselves, we have personal experiences interacting with the media during our time competing. And sports psychology theorizes, and we have personal experiences and anecdotal stories about the impact that media coverage has, but the true impact is really unknown. Because like I said before, there's not a whole lot of empirical studies that were able to isolate media coverage as a variable and establish a statistically significant result as to the impact on the football performance. So basically, what we have with the current data is that our best answer is that it varies from person to person based on personality type and circumstances surrounding it.
All right, so we have some questions for you guys to get you all involved. So the first question is, as an economist, do the positives outweigh the negatives when regarding the media's unrestricted role in athletics? Jade.
So I think that the negatives probably positive things because when it comes to they end up being sport.
Cool, yeah. So the second question that we have would be, which entities do you think benefit most from the media access to the players and who suffers the most? I feel like it's a pretty easy one to answer. I don't know if anyone wants to give it, but basically the entities that would benefit the most would be the leagues and obviously the media companies like Fox News, all these different kind of things, because they're the ones who are bringing in the revenue from these access to the players. And the ones who suffer the biggest losses are the athletes because of the mental toll they have on it. And yeah, stuff like that.
So with the recent events like Simone Biles and just the overarching theme of this presentation, do you think that the recent events will change the obligations to be written in contracts, given the toll on mental health?
I would say probably not. I'll answer that one for you, but probably not, because these companies are just getting so much revenue from these sports teams and these players that they still are going to make a requirement for the next years. They may change the requirement of how much they're able to do it. Like in the NFL, they have to be available even in the locker room. Like these guys are changing now and cameras are in their face. And it's just like, you know, sometimes there's boundaries you shouldn't cross, but with the media, it seems like there's no boundaries. But yeah.
All right. That concludes our presentation.